Hi developers! Do you need a slider? Well, there are several options for doing that. The first option is to create a slider by using third-party websites, for example Bootstrap. The second option is to build a slider from scratch in vanilla JavaScript. We'll make this slider in vanilla JavaScript. This slider allows us to switch between sliders manually. Also, it can change slides automatically, and we can pause it if we need it. Alright, let's do this. So we create a folder and let's call it Slider. Then open this folder in a text editor. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. So click on File, Open, and then we open our folder. Now, let's create the basic structure of the project. So we create a file called slider.html, and after that 3 folders called CSS, JS, and a folder called Images, where we are going to store all the images of our slider. The next thing is to copy all these images. I have all these images on my computer, so I just copy and paste them into the folder Images. The next step is to design the slider structure. So as you can see, the slider consists of 2 parts, the image and the controls at the bottom. We see 3 buttons, the previous button, the autoplay, and the next button. Therefore, we create the basic structure of any web page. As the title, let's write the word slider. After that, we're going to create a div with the class slider. As we have already discussed, the slider consists of 2 parts. That's why inside of this div, we create 2 other divs with the class slider body and slider controls. Inside this div, we should have an image. So we create an img tag with the class slider image. For src, we set the first image. So we type in images /slider 1 JPEG. For alt, let's write the text image. Then in the second div, we're going to create 3 buttons with the class slider button. For the first button, let's add another class called slider button pref. For the second button, we have the class slider button play. And for the last button, we add the class slider button next. Alright, save it and let's check it out. Okay, this is what we have so far. So let's make it more beautiful by adding some CSS styles to our slider. To do this, we need to connect CSS styles to our HTML file. So in the head, we write link style sheet href css/style.css. And now, let's create this style.css file. Alright, in the CSS folder, we create the file style.css. Then we open this file and set the width for our slider. Okay, let's make it 80% of the width of the page. Since the width is not 100%, we need to center the slider. So we type in margin 30 pixels vertically. And we set auto horizontally. Great, now our slider is center aligned horizontally. Also, let's add some shadow by writing box shadow 0 for x, 0 for y, blur radius 10 pixels, and for color we set 999. Let's make all corners rounded by writing border radius 4 pixels. But this border radius style will not work for the image nested inside of the block. So to fix that, we add overflow hidden. Okay, let's save it and see what we get. Alright. It looks more delicate, but the image is still too big. So to make it look better, we're going to add some CSS styles. The image should take all the width of the slider. Therefore, we write width 100%. Then we need to set the height. Suppose we want the image to take 80% of the visible part of the web page height. To implement this, we type in height 80VH, which means 80 viewport height. This unit is based on the height of the viewport. It is a new measurement which has been introduced in CSS 3. A value of 1 VH is equal to 1% of the viewport height. Now, save and refresh the page. Good, it works. Nevertheless, if we take a closer look, we will see that our image is a bit squeezed. And when we change the width of the browser's window, the picture continues to squeeze even further, which is not good, right? So to fix this, we need to add another CSS property called Object Fit. The Object Fit property is pretty similar to the Background Size property, which has values such as contain and color. So Object Fit sets pretty much the same behavior for images as background size for background images. So to avoid the image being squeezed, we set the value cover for the property Object Fit. Okay, as we can see, now when we change the width of the browser's window, the image looks excellent. When the part of the picture doesn't fit the width of the browser, it is just hidden. Great. Now, let's head over to the buttons, which should have these signs on them. Of course, we could make these signs by ourselves or find them on the internet. However, there is another way to use a specialized website called Font Awesome. So we Google Font Awesome and then click on the first link. This website is very convenient because it has lots of different icons which we can use whenever we want it. So we click on the button Start for free. Then we scroll down a bit and click Download. After that, we click on Download Font Awesome free for the web. Alright, then click on the archive. Here's the folder we need, and inside of it we see lots of other folders. Now we need to take 3 steps. Firstly, out of all these folders, we copy the folder Web Fonts. Then, in our project, we paste it next to the folder CSS and Images. Secondly, we go inside the CSS folder and copy the file called all.min.css. Then, in our project, we open the CSS folder and paste it here. Thirdly, we're going to connect the all.min.css file to our HTML file. So go to the slider.html file, and below the line where we connected CSS styles, we link this file. Now, to insert the necessary icon, we go back to the Font Awesome website and click on Icons. And we search for the required icon. Now we're going to choose the one we like most. For example, let's choose this icon, chevron left. To copy this HTML, we click on it and paste it inside of the button tag. Let's also paste it for the last button. But we change chevron left to chevron right. Then we search for the play icon. Here it is. Again, to copy this line, we click on it and then paste it inside of the button tag. Alright, save and refresh the page. Now we see our buttons, which don't look cute. So let's add some CSS styles for the class slider button. So we set the width and height at 50 pixels. Then background is EO, EO, EO. Border 2 pixels solid. 9E, 9E, 9E. Let's also make the corners rounded by adding border radius 50%. And we add margin 0 vertically and 10 pixels horizontally. Finally, let's specify the color of the icons. For example, 61, 61, 61. OK, save and refresh the page. Great! The buttons look much nicer. So now we're going to center the buttons and add some padding at the top and bottom. OK, for the class slider controls, we add display flex and justify content center. With these lines, we center the buttons. After that, we add some padding, 10 pixels vertically and 0 horizontally. Now let's check how it works so far. Awesome! Much better. And exactly what we need. Let's make the final two adjustments. When we hover over the button, the cursor should turn into a hand icon. Also, when we click on the button, we see this blue square around it. Let's make it so that when we click on the button changes color. So, for slide and button hover, we specify cursor pointer. And background BD, BD, BD. And now, to avoid blue square around the button, we add slider button focus, outline none. Finally, let's change border color to blue, for instance 42 AFF 5. Let's check it out. When we hover over the buttons, we see this small hand icon, and when we click the button, the border of the color changes to blue. We click here, and we see the blue border. Excellent! Everything works properly. By the way, we can slide the buttons by clicking the Tab button, and when we press Shift plus Tab, we can slide backward, which is very helpful when we manage a website from our keyboard. Alright guys, the good news is that we're done with CSS.